Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, as I'm sure you guys remember, earlier this season after Malaysia actually, it was Max Verstappen who signed a brand spanking new deal at Red Bull, taking to the end of 2020. Now, at the time, Christian Horner went on about it, they've talked about it since, and Dr. Helmut Marko kind of confirmed it as well, that the team were aiming to build Red Bull around Max Verstappen. As we've seen in the past with Ferrari, Benetton, and of course Red Bull themselves with Sebastian Vettel, this is a proven formula for success within the sport, but realistically guys, where does this leave Daniel Ricciardo? Before I jump into my opinions on this then, guys, I'm going to start off with some stats because for some reason I appear to be stat obsessed with Formula 1 at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo, of course, debuted in 2011 at the British Grand Prix for HRT, replacing Narain Karthikeyan, although Karthikeyan did return for his home Grand Prix in India later that year, of course. Ricciardo has raced in 128 Grand Prix, no titles obviously, but 5 wins, 27 podiums, 1 pole position, 9 fastest laps, 816 career points, 76 points finishes in 218 starts is absolutely incredible when you consider that he started at HRT, then moved to Toro Rosso before he even got to Red Bull. So that for me is absolutely incredible. And I genuinely didn't realise just how good Daniel Ricciardo was in terms of point scoring consistency. And actually guys, 64 of those points finishes have come in Daniel Ricciardo's last 79 Grand Prix. That is very, very impressive. And of course, he's raced for 3 teams, as I earlier mentioned, with HRT, Toro Rosso, and Red Bull. So if Red Bull are going to build the team around Max Verstappen moving forward, what does this mean for Daniel Ricciardo? Well, Christian Horner has said that he wants to keep Daniel Ricciardo on, and he's on about 6 months worth of negotiations, and they're desperate to keep him in. And you know, Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo will probably make the strongest driver pairing on the grid. So it's critical for Red Bull that they keep hold of them. But for Daniel Ricciardo, it just doesn't make sense because even if Red Bull back down now, they've already promised Max Verstappen effectively number 1 status. If they back down on that and then claim to Daniel Ricciardo that's not the case, then that's going to cause a lot of animosity between the 2 drivers. And of course, it all but confirms as it is Daniel Ricciardo as number 2 driver. And will he want that? I mean, probably not. But realistically, what are the options? McLaren are one option. Fernando Alonso is out of contract at the end of 2018 and that seat could open up, although, to be honest, Fernando Alonso has spent the last 3 years been starved of competitive running, and if Renault prove a good engine supplier, then he's probably going to want to stay on and give it another go for at least 2019. Plus, if he does retire, I think Lando Norris is in line to take that seat and probably partner Stoffel Van Dorn. So, although McLaren is an option, it's probably not the most realistic option out of those that I've come up with. One that has been mooted a lot, of course, is a move to Ferrari and partnering Sebastian Vettel. And Ferrari have gone on just recently quite a lot about how important it is to them to have 2 drivers that get along. And as we saw in 2014, Daniel Ricciardo got on very, very well with Sebastian Vettel, despite the fact he outclassed the 4-time world champion massively. He took 3 wins and a further 5 podiums. Of course, Sebastian Vettel didn't win a single race, and it would have been 6 podiums for Ricciardo had he not been disqualified in Australia for using too much fuel. He finished 3rd in the championship, 2 places and 71 points ahead of the 4-time world champion. He'd had a great relationship with Vettel despite this, so that would be something that Ferrari would definitely look at. So for the Scuderia, he would be a fantastic signing, but for Daniel Ricciardo, probably not his wisest move. If he wants to leave Red Bull to avoid becoming number 2 driver, the last place he wants to be is Sebastian Vettel's teammate at Ferrari, because Red Bull might be more lenient. As we've seen in the past, you know, Multi-21, they're willing to give the second driver, if you like, a chance to win races, and they're willing to put the team first in that situation, and they're a bit more lenient with it, whereas Ferrari are very strict, as we've seen in the past with number 2 drivers. So if Daniel Ricciardo does go to Ferrari, he's almost definitely going to be Sebastian Vettel's number 2 driver, and that is, for me, a worse option for him than staying at Red Bull would be. Great signing for Ferrari, fantastic deal for the team, but not a great deal for Daniel Ricciardo as a driver. You know, he's 28 now, he's entering his prime, and they are not going to last very, very long. There are a lot of young drivers coming through that are going to threaten drivers like, I don't know, Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, drivers like that. They're going to threaten those drivers' chances of getting into a top seat. So this next 12 months for Ricciardo are absolutely crucial, and the last thing he wants to do is go to Ferrari and end up as just a number 2 driver. I would love to see Daniel Ricciardo go to Ferrari and go up against Sebastian Vettel in equal equipment again, just to prove those doubters wrong. You know, people say that Vettel only lost out to Ricciardo in 2014 because he couldn't get used to the car, because the new formula didn't suit him and the car wasn't what he needed. So I would love to see him go to Ferrari in equal equipment with Sebastian Vettel and just see if 2014 was a fluke or whether it is just down to the fact that Daniel Ricciardo, which in my opinion is more likely, is just a fantastic racing driver. This next 12 months are crucial, like I say, and going to Ferrari is only going to stunt his growth within Formula 1 and probably risk his chances of a world championship, because he has has got the potential to be at least a one-time world champion, if not a multiple world champion, with the right car underneath him and the right environment for him. So in terms of top teams, the only realistic option for him after Ferrari and McLaren would be Mercedes, of course. Valtteri Bottas is out of contract at the end of 2018, and although a move to Mercedes will be seen by many as another number 2 move, Mercedes are more likely to keep their drivers and have proven it on an equal footing. They tend to sort of look at it and say, until the Constructors' Championship is sealed or one of you is too far ahead of the other in the title race, we'll always give you equal status. And despite the fact he only signed for the team this year, they also said that about Valtteri Bottas this season. They made it clear that he was on equal status with Lewis Hamilton until one of them was too far ahead in the championship of the other, and that is when they would force team orders. So although you could argue it would still be a move to be a number 2 driver, he would be given more opportunity at Mercedes than he would be at Ferrari or staying at Red Bull. And I personally think that driver pairing of Hamilton and Ricciardo would give Mercedes the best driver lineup we've seen in Formula 1 for a very, very long time. I guess the other thing to consider with Mercedes, of course, is that Lewis Hamilton is out of contract at the end of 2019. So would they hang on and wait for Daniel Ricciardo then and bring him in as maybe number 1 driver or as first choice replacement for Lewis Hamilton? I'm going to say no. If I'm being honest, I think if Lewis Hamilton turns around, big if he turns around at the end of 2019 and says, I'm off, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore, I think Merck would turn to Sebastian Vettel. At which point then I guess that opens the door up for Daniel Ricciardo to go to Ferrari as the number 1 driver. So that could still work out for the Honey Badger. So it may happen, but I think Merck would turn to Sebastian Vettel should Lewis Hamilton decide to retire, but I don't think he will. So I guess what I'm saying, guys, is if Daniel Ricciardo wants to move from Red Bull at the end of next season, his best option realistically if he wants to compete on a level footing is probably to move to Mercedes. The biggest problem for Daniel Ricciardo in that, though, is Esteban Ocon, who I genuinely think is in line to replace Valtteri Bottas at the end of next season. He has been fantastic. Of course, before Brazil, he hadn't retired from a single-seater race since 2014. So I would be very surprised if Mercedes chose Daniel Ricciardo over Esteban Ocon, although I just think that would be brilliant to see Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo going toe-to-toe in equal equipment. It'd be brilliant for Ricciardo. It'd be great for Lewis Hamilton. Not so good for Bottas, obviously, but it would also be absolutely incredible for Mercedes to have those two as teammates because you've got such a strong lineup there over the next couple of seasons before, of course, the 2021 engine regulation changes. On the face of it then, guys, I guess the best option at the moment for Daniel Ricciardo is probably to stick with Red Bull. As I said earlier, although they may have a number 1 and number 2 driver, they are more likely to let their drivers race it out and are more likely to imply team orders that benefit the second driver than Ferrari would be. But if I were Daniel Ricciardo, which by the way would be absolutely awesome, but anyway, that's never going to happen. But if I were Daniel Ricciardo, I would totally sit back and just wait and see what is happening at Mercedes and what noises they're making before I commit to any decision whatsoever. As I've said, guys, he's 28 and this next 12 months are absolutely crucial for Daniel Ricciardo. He has got so much potential still to fulfill. He could be a multiple Formula 1 world champion and an absolute great of this sport. He has genuinely got that potential, in my opinion. But as Fernando Alonso has proven in the past, it's not about how much potential you've got. It's not about how good a driver you are. It's about making the right decision at the right time and being in the right team at the right time. I can see him sticking with Red Bull out of loyalty partially, but also because I think he knows that with the engine regs changing in 2021, Max Verstappen may disappear anyway and he would become the number 1 driver. It's whether he's willing to play potentially second fiddle to Max Verstappen over the next couple of seasons, which are going to be the absolute deciding factor in all of this. I just hope for his sake that if he does stay and Red Bull are genuinely going to build a team around Max Verstappen, we don't end up with another case similar to Mark Webber. It's got all the hallmarks of it, and it's not dissimilar to Sebastian Vettel's move to Red Bull when Webber had been there for quite a while. But with respect to Mark Webber, I think Daniel Ricciardo is a quicker driver and is genuinely a better driver than him. I've got nothing against Mark Webber, but I do think Daniel Ricciardo is the better driver, so Red Bull probably wouldn't push quite as hard for that to happen. All I know is that this is a big moment in Daniel Ricciardo's career, and this is going to be a very, very interesting 12 months in Formula 1 and silly season. I've already started it. There you go. We're only in November. The current season isn't over, and I've already started with silly season. Good job, Sean. Good job. Of course, though, guys, they are just my opinions. What do you think about Daniel Ricciardo? Do you think he needs to move on from Red Bull? And where do you see him in the future in Formula 1? Let me know in the comments down below. I will be back later in the week, of course, with more content, and I am live streaming again on Sunday. Thank you so much, guys, in Discord for helping me pick a topic for this Sunday's live stream. If you do want to join us on Discord, guys, and join the growing community, follow the link in the description below. I think that'll be active for around 24 hours, and I will try and remember to replace it with another link. link. But as ever, guys, thank you so much for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.